Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Dhari. Girivaradhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamunatiram Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtottara Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th Canto, Chapter 18, text number 37. Dravya, Kriya, hetu ayanesha kartribhir maya gunair vastu nirikshitatmane. What's a big? Yeah, I'll break it up. Anvikshaya anga atishaya atma buddhi bihi nirasta maya kritaye namo namaha. Dravya kriya hetvayanesha kartribhir maya gunair vastu nirikshatatmane. Anvikshayanga tishayatma buddhibir nirastamaya kritaye namo namaha. Dravya kriya hetvayanesha kartribhir maya gunair vastu nirikshatatmane. Anvikshayanga tishayatma buddhibir nirastamaya kritaye namo namaha. Dravya kriya hetvayanesha kartribhir maya gunair vastu nirikshatatmane. Anvikshayanga tishayatma buddhibir nirastamaya kritaye namo namaha. Anybody else in person? Zoom.
Drabbai kriyai hatvi anishakirtavi Mai gunai vastu nirikshatmane Anvikshai anga tishatma buddhivi Nirasto maya kritaya namo namaha.
Dravya, by the objects of sense enjoyment. Kriya, the activities of the senses. Hetu, the predominating deities of sensory activities. Ayana, the body. Isha, the predominating time. Kartribihi, by false egotism. Maya Gurnai, by the modes of material nature. Vastu, as a fact. Nirikshita, being observed. Atmane, unto the Supreme Soul. Anvikshaya, by careful consideration. Anga, by the limbs of yogic practice. Atishaya Atma Buddhibhihi, by whose intelligence has become fixed. Nirasta, completely freed from. Maya, the illusory energy. Akritaye, whose form. Namaha, all respectful obeisances. Namaha, all respectful obeisances. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The objects of material enjoyment, sound, form, taste, touch, and smell, the activities of the senses, controllers of sensory activities, the demigods, the body, eternal time, and egotism are all creations of your material energy. Those whose intelligence has become fixed by perfect execution of mystic yoga can see that all these elements result from the actions of your external energy. They can also see your transcendental form as a supersoul in the background of everything. Therefore, I repeatedly offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Purport. The objects of material enjoyment, the sensory activities, attachment to sensual pleasure, the body, false egotism, and so on, are produced by the Lord's external energy. The background of all these activities is the living being, and the director of the living being is the Supersoul. The living being is not the all-in-all. He is directed by the Supersoul. In Bhagavad-gita, Krishna 15:15, Krishna confirms this. Sarvasya cāhaṁ hṛdi sanniviṣṭo mattaḥ smṛtir jñānam apohanaṁ cha. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. The living entity depends on the Supersoul for directions. A person advanced in spiritual knowledge, or a person expert in the practice of mystic yoga, yama, niyama, āsana, and so on, can understand transcendence either as Paramatma or as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Lord is the original cause of all natural events. Therefore, He is described as sarva-kāraṇa-kāraṇam, the cause of all causes. Behind everything visible to our material eyes is some cause, and one who can see the original cause of all causes, Lord Krishna, can actually see. Krishna, the sac-cid-ānanda-vigraha, is the background of everything, as He Himself confirms in Bhagavad-gita 9:10. Mayādhyakṣena prakriti suyate sacharacharam hetunanena kaunteya jagadviparivartate. This material nature is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, and it is producing all moving and unmoving beings. By its rule, this manifestation is being created and annihilated again and again. Om ajñānatimirandasya jñānāñjana-śalakaya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave namaha nama shreshtam manumapi shachiputramatra swarupam rupam tasyagrajam urupurim mathurim goshtavatim radhakundam girivaramaho radhika madhavasham prapto yasya pratita kripaya Shri Gurum tam natosmi Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutabadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this verse is talking about how Krishna, He's the cause of all causes. As mentioning in the verse, he's the cause of the objects of material enjoyment, the activities of the senses, the controllers of sensory activities, the body, eternal time, and egotism. And so the living entity, like it says in the purport, the living entity is the background of all of these things. The living entity is experiencing all these things. They're experiencing the activities of the senses with the objects of material enjoyment, under the control of the demigods, within the body, within time. So all of these things the living entity is experiencing, kind of taking like a passenger seat. You can imagine if the body is like a race car. In one sense, we're the driver, but in one sense, we're also in the passenger seat. Because really, we have no actual independence in whatever action we're performing. Like Krishna says, he says, upadarshanamantacha. Is that correct? Yeah. He's the witness, he's the sanctioner. So he's sanctioning all of our activities. Like in the Bible it says, not a blade of grass moves without the sanction of the Lord. So, but in Maya, when we're under the influence of the illusory energy of Krishna, we're thinking that we're the doer. Prakrite kriyamana ani gunai karmani sarvasya ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. Due to our ahankar, due to our false egotism, we're thinking that we're the doer of activities which are actually performed by the material nature. Even on a material level, actually we're not independent whatsoever in our performance of action. It's mentioned in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam in the Bhagavad-gita, how there's three factors. You need senses, there's adidaivic, adhyatmic, and adibhautic factors to perception and to action within this world. First, you need the senses, and you need the actual object, and then you need the demigods who are in control of the senses and the sense objects, and who manage the universe in such a way that we can. Like, if you can imagine how difficult it would be to gratify our senses if there were no light from the sun, or how difficult it would be to gratify our senses if there were no grains growing. So all these things are managed by the demigods in this world. We need rain to grow food. We need the sun to grow food, but also to see what we're doing. Like this. So and then also Prabhupada, of course, mentions, and Shastra mentions, how we have four defects. We have a tendency to be illusioned, tendency to cheat others, imperfect senses, and the tendency to make mistakes. So even materially, there's so many limitations that we have to what we can do, how much we can enjoy. But people, they're trying so hard because they're thinking that there's some kind of existence that they can have which is separate from Krishna. In fact, they're not even consciously thinking that. They've completely forgotten Krishna. They've completely forgotten what the point of their life is, why they're here, why they even exist. So in this forgetfulness, this world becomes very confusing. You don't have any frame of reference to base anything off of. Scientists, they've been searching for so long. What's the cause of this universe? What's the reason for our existence? Where does consciousness come from? All these different things. Been searching for so long, thousands of years. People have been searching, asking these questions. And now, even though we're so technologically so-called advanced, we are technologically advanced, but that's not real advancement. We are so technologically advanced, and we have all these instruments for perceiving the universe. We have like the Hubble telescope, and we can look so far into the universe, and we have electron microscopes. We can look at things which are very, 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 very small. Even now, they have microscopes that you can see atoms. So you can see things. They have all these instruments, all these tools to try to kind of suss out what's going on, but they can't figure it out. They can't figure it out at all. But the devotees, they know. In the first verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Janmadyasya tonyavari taratashcharte shrabhigya swarat tene brahma hṛdaya adikavaye muhyanti yat surya. Tejo vari mridam yatha vinimayo yatra trisargam rasha dhamna svena sadani rasta kuhakam satyam param dhimahi. In the third line, Tejo vari mridam yatha vinimayo yatra trisargam rasha. Only because of him, because of Krishna, does this world appear to be real. Of course, it's real, but it's temporary, it's flickering. So only because of Krishna does this world appear real. Does this world even exist? Krishna in the Brahma Samhita, it's the Ishvara Parama Krishna, sarva-kāraṇa-kāraṇam. Krishna is the cause of all causes. When you can say, okay, well, there's so many causes, you know. Like, why am I sitting here? I'm sitting here because, okay, well, I was on the schedule for the Bhagavatam class. Why was I on the schedule for the Bhagavatam class? Because we decided on it. This, and this, and this, and that. And then you get to why was the universe created? Because Lord Brahma created it. Well, who created Lord Brahma? Krishna. So, all of these causes that are happening in this world, the original cause is Krishna. And Krishna, he has no cause. Krishna's Janmadyasya. He's the cause of the creation, the maintenance, and the annihilation of this universe. So without knowledge of Krishna, what can we know? We can have some idea of, you know, maybe things that are going on around us, or maybe some, you know, principles of the material world. You know, like people now are very focused how to get lots of money, how to invest their money into different things and have it, you know, do big returns. Of course, a lot of times it doesn't return, but Tyler's dad says, do hearts always get it back? So, for some people it may return. But what can you really know? You can't know anything really substantial. Because all the knowledge that you could get in this world, about this world, it's temporary. It's not going to free you. It's like if you're tied up with chains, you can look at the chains and say, okay, the chain, I think these are made of like a steel alloy, and it looks like there's some rust on this one, on chain number 3, or on link number 3 of my wrist chains, and I see some spots of water on chain number 6 and 7 on my ankle chains. You know, what's the value? To get knowledge about the prison that you're in. The real substantial knowledge would be knowledge of how to get out of the prison, how to get out of the chains. And so Krishna says, or in this verse it's saying, that those whose intelligence has become fixed by perfect execution of mystic yoga can see that all these elements result from the actions of your external energy. Those who are, you can substitute in this verse, mystic yoga, you can substitute that for bhakti yoga. In fact, it's better, because Krishna says, bhakti-āhāṁ abhijanati, that Krishna can only be known through bhakti. Only by love can we understand Krishna. So if we engage in the process of bhakti yoga, then you can understand who is Krishna, and that's real intelligence. Krishna says, aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. Like this word is being repeated, buddha or buddhi. In this verse it's saying, in the third line, buddha, talking about buddha or buddhi, intelligence. So Krishna is saying, one who has real intelligence, they engage in devotional service unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes, knowing me to be the proprietor of the material world, the creator of the material world, and the spiritual world. So one who's intelligent, they engage in bhakti yoga. They engage in the process of devotional service. And the conditioned souls, they have a really big problem with this. They don't want to surrender. They want to be in Krishna's position. They want, what's that? Ishvaro hamaham bhogi. They want to be the controllers. They want to be the enjoyers. And factually, they think they are. I think it was yesterday in class that Vijay Prabhu mentioned the Shakespeare quote, the whole world's a stage and everybody thinks that they're the main character, something like that. Yeah, it was something along those lines. So true. Everybody, you look outside. Like yesterday we were in Ocean Beach distributing books, and everybody's all dressed up, like all kind of, I don't know if you guys have seen, like in cartoons, you can kind of see like, it's like all the people around the main character look, they're like normal people, but the main character's got like big, like pink hair and like a crazy outfit or something like that on. And you could tell just by looking around, everybody thinks that they're like the main character in some, TV show or something like that. They've got, crazy makeup, crazy hair. They've got all the, crazy clothes, and they're thinking that they're the center of attention. And so therefore in this world, there's so much conflict because it's like you have all these people who think they're God, and they want their, thy will be done. They want my will be done. But, the world is not conforming to what they want. They want the world to be in a certain way to facilitate their sense gratification, to facilitate their ideas, to facilitate their false ego, their persona of who they think they are. But it doesn't work, and therefore they're so dissatisfied. There's like people that are, especially teenagers nowadays, they go through so many phases. I remember myself as a teenager, I go through so many phases, just trying to find, okay, maybe I'm not going to be this, maybe I'll be that. And they try that for some time. And you start dressing in a certain way, you paint your nails black or something like that. And then it doesn't work. You're not satisfied. Okay, this doesn't fit. And then you try something else. And then that also doesn't fit. And so the material world, it's like you're just trying and trying and trying over and over again just to find, to eke out some little happiness. But it's a miscalculation. This world is not meant for happiness. The world is not meant to fit into our whatever conception we have of it. The world is not dependent on us. We are dependent on the world practically. Or actually a better way to say it would be, we're not in control of the world. The world is in control of us. This material nature is in control of us. So one who's intelligent, they bow down. They bow down to Krishna. They say, okay, Krishna, you're in control. I don't want to be in control of the material nature anymore. You're in control. Do with me what you like. And that's not, weakness. That's not, weak-mindedness. It's not brainwashing. It's not whatever. It's intelligence. Just like if you're going to, I don't know, if you're in a car and you're going 90 miles an hour toward a wall and your brakes are broken, if you say, oh my God, I'm going to die, that's not weakness. You're going to die. If somebody can't be in that car and say, oh, I'm not going to die, you're going to die. This body's going to die. Like it's said in the Bhagavatam, the most amazing thing. Thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people are dying every single day, but people think they're not going to die. They may have some theoretical, they may say, oh yeah, of course I know I'm going to die, but they don't think it. They don't act in such a way which actually would give some understanding that they have realized that. Because they're trying to live as if they're not going to die. They're trying to enjoy, they're trying to make some niche in this world, they're trying to make a happy situation. But it's always a failure. Everything in this world, everything you do, it's always a failure. And it just gets harder and harder and harder and harder to see any kind of rhyme or reason for people in this world. People like, you see the culture nowadays, it's just getting so degraded. People are so confused. Like, yesterday in Ocean Beach, I'm sorry, but I'll say it. There was a fully grown man walking around in makeup, and he was wearing a bikini. I mean, people are so confused. They're confused about even their own bodies. They can't make heads or tails of it. So, the devotees of Krishna and anybody who's intelligent, at the very least, they'll acknowledge, I'm not in control here. Let me find out. Let me find out who's in control. Let me find out that situation. in which I don't have to be subjected to birth, in which I don't have to be subjected to death, old age, and disease. What's going on here? And so Krishna, he gives us so much facility, even for ignorance. I mean, just look at all the varieties of sin in this world, not just in this world, but in the, in all the three worlds. There's so much variety of sense gratification, so much variety of abominable activity that one can engage in. So just imagine how much facility Krishna will give for knowledge, for coming back to him, if he's giving so much facility for people to be separate from him. So, yes, we have to bow down to Krishna. Yes, we have to say, okay, Krishna, you're my Lord. You're in control. I'm your servant. But we can't just say that. Still, we have to do our work. Just like when we get initiated. When you get initiated, it's not that you've made it. Still, you have to keep going. You have to keep doing your work. Because it says, Krishna says, Daivihesha gunamayi mama maya durataya. That this material energy it's very, very difficult to overcome. Practically from time immemorial. Practically eternally, nityabada. We've been in this material world just rotating over and over and over and over and over again in different lives. And we've been so conditioned to, even in this life, we're so conditioned to a certain way of life. Devotees, sometimes they have, I remember I had a hard time joining the ashram, It's a completely different way of life. What to speak of trying to, swim against the current, so to speak, of how we've been living for millions, trillions, billions, unlimited practically lifetimes, gazillions, in this world since time immemorial. It's extremely difficult. So it's not just that we say, okay, Krishna, you're my Lord, you're in control, I'm your servant, Hari Bol, and then we fall asleep or something like that. We have to continue doing Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenam upayanti yenam upayanti te tivrena bhakti yogena. We have to be very determined to purify our aim of life, because right now our aim of life in the neophyte stage, our aim of life is still sense gratification. We may have some idea that Krishna consciousness is good, that we want to engage in Krishna consciousness, but still, our aim of life isn't purified. We're not ready to go back to Godhead. The spiritual world is a very specific mood. There's a very specific, in Goloka Vrindavan, it's a very specific atmosphere. Even Lakshmi Devi couldn't get in. So we have to be in a very specific consciousness, meaning we have to have one pointed attention on serving Krishna, no other consideration. So if we went back to, Krishna could let us back in if he wanted to. Krishna could do anything he wants. But what would be the value? We'd just create a disturbance, In the middle of the night, the gopis want to go see Krishna, but I'm sorry, I'm kind of tired, Lila. You guys can... I'll wait here. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. So anyway, we're not ready to go back to Godhead. We have to purify our aim of life. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the second canto, the last verse of the second chapter, it tells us how we can purify our aim of life. Pibantiye, this is all glory to Dravida Prabhu for teaching me this verse. Pibantiye bhagavata atmana satam kathamratam shravarna puteshu sambratam. Punanti te vishaya vidushita ashayam. I'm forgetting the last line. But they go back to the lotus feet of Krishna. One who hears the nectar of Krishna Katha, one who drinks it in through their ear holes. They purify their polluted aim of life. And they make progress further and further, and eventually they attain the lotus feet of Krishna, a place at the lotus feet of Krishna. So this is our goal, that we have to be constantly absorbed in Krishna Katha. Even if we're, out preaching, still we have to control the mind. We have to always be thinking of Krishna. There's a purport in the I want to say it's in the 5th canto, where Srila Prabhupada, he's saying that the mind should always be neglected. That whenever, the mind thinks so many stupid things, but we just have to neglect. Something comes up in the mind, it's like, okay, It's not that, like we're chanting japa, for example, and we're chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare, and we start thinking of something, and then, some sense gratification thing, and you're like, oh my God, Hare Krishna, I'm so fallen, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Wow, I can't believe I just had that thought, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Wow, that's so bad. That's a really bad thought, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And you just think about it over and over again. You start, you have a piece of dirt on your mind, and you're just looking at the piece of dirt. You're like, wow, that's really dirty. And then eventually you're more focused on the piece of dirt or the bad thought in your mind than you are in, Krishna Katha and chanting the holy name. But at the same time, yes, we neglect the mind, but also at the same time, we should never neglect the mind. We should never leave the mind to its own devices. We should never just let it run free. We should always be cautious, understand, okay, my mind has a tendency to do this, so I'm going to be careful. But if it does, okay, I'm just going to say, I know what this is, Not that we're surprised every time we have a thought about sense gratification. So like this. And the mind, the best way to control the mind, the best way to rein the mind in is to have fixed intelligence in Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. We have to hear the instructions of the spiritual master, the instructions of the Vaishnavas, and the instructions that are given in Shastra. And like this, then we don't have to get mental about, for example, trying to think of an example that won't ostracize anyone. I don't know, for example, if you say, okay, should I go to the movies tonight or should I go to the temple? You're thinking, you can think for so long, people, the movies would be kind of nice, I go there with my girlfriend and we'd have some popcorn and get some garlic fries or something like that. Or I could go to the temple because Krishna consciousness. I should be really going to the temple. I haven't been in some time, and it would also be kind of fun. You can think like this, for so long. But if you hear from Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, that thought process doesn't even come up. You think, okay, Prabhupada said, we shouldn't go to the movies. Okay, Prabhupada said we shouldn't eat, popcorn cooked by karmis. Prabhupada said we shouldn't eat garlic. Prabhupada actually, I don't remember the pastime well enough, so I won't say it. Maybe I'll ask Dravida Prabhu or Balaram Prabhu after the class. It was the pastime, one of Prabhupada's friends wanted him to go to the movies, and he said something like he'd rather die than go to the movies or something like that. Do you remember that, Dravida Prabhu?
They wanted to take him to the movies, and finally he went to the movies.
Prabhu, can you use the microphone?
But he never actually went in. He said that he would never go.
Oh, he went to the movie. Okay, so Prabhupada...
They're physically pulling him so you get there, but he get to the...
Yeah.
And that was the limit. He's not going inside the movie.
Yeah. So if you understand from Srila Prabhupada's example, that we shouldn't go to the movies, then you won't even have to think about it. So this is the function of the instructions from the spiritual masters. This is the function of the instructions from Shastra in association with the devotees, is that we control the mind by the intelligence. And we have to remind ourselves, why we're engaging in Krishna consciousness. We're engaging in Krishna consciousness because we're trying to love Krishna. We're submitting ourselves to the will of the spiritual master. We're submitting ourselves to the instructions of Shastra. Why? Because we're trying to love Krishna. Not just that, okay, this is like something I should do. My Guru Maharaj told me I should, I don't know, do this or do that. And we just do it because, okay, somebody told me to. Fine, that's good. That's one platform. But the real reason we should be doing it is because I want to love Krishna. And these instructions, these devotees, if I serve their instructions, if they're pleased with me, then I can love Krishna. And so we have to be determined in this way. And it won't happen immediately. It won't happen immediately that we just engage in some service. Like for example, we do the deity back and we start washing the deity plates and we just fall over and start rolling in ecstasy and tears. It can happen. But usually it doesn't happen. So we have to be very patient. We have to be very patient with the process of devotional service. We have to be very patient with ourselves. That, okay, I've been in Maya for a really, really long time, but Krishna, I'm trying. I know I have a lot of anarthas that I have to purify. But, Krishna, I'm not going to give up. That I'm going to keep doing my service. I'm going to keep trying to love you. Because that's what I want. I want to love you. I want to go back to Godhead. I don't want to have anything to do with this material world anymore. And so if we have this determination, tesham satati yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam, tadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayantite, then we'll attain Krishna, no doubt. Prabhupada says this verse, tatenu kampam susamik shamana bunjana evapna kritam vipakam. Srila Prabhupada said that this is the example for all devotees, that we should always, be very patient with the process of Krishna consciousness, thinking that any obstacles on the path, any misfortune which comes our way, is due to our own karma, due to our own previous sinful activities. So we should have this determination. We should have this patience and determination to engage in the process of Krishna consciousness wholeheartedly. Throw ourselves in. Open our hearts to Krishna. Say, this is what I want, and I'm not going to give up. And if we do this, then if we do this, then there's no possibility of failing. There's no possibility of failing. Yayatamam prapadyante. Krishna wants us to come back. And if we engage in devotional service to Him, He'll reciprocate with us. It may not be immediately that we just go back to Godhead, but we'll start to see Krishna's hand in different things. He'll arrange certain situations. He'll arrange certain associations by which we can make advancement. He'll arrange, for example, that our material attachments are taken away from us. He'll arrange that we lose all of our friends. I remember before I joined the temple, just naturally, I didn't even try for it. I stopped speaking to all my friends. I stopped speaking to all my friends. Just naturally, just kind of fizzled out, No real reason that it happened. And then I started coming to the temple and, Krishna took practically everything from me. But it was difficult. It's extremely difficult. But, looking back on it, it helped so much. I would have so many, hang-ups, and Krishna really arranged, and Krishna arranges in everybody's life. Like Krishna arranged in Srila Prabhupada's life. His wife and children, they weren't really interested in devotional service. He would have programs at his house and his wife would be upstairs drinking tea. So Krishna arranges for his devotees to be successful. And actually, the only way that we can have any kind of success in this world is if we surrender to Krishna. Sarva-dharman pratyajya mam ekam sharanam raja aham tvam sarva-papebhyo moksha yishami ma-shuchaha. Krishna says, don't worry about it. Just leave it to me. So it's not that we're submitting to a cruel God. It's not that we're just, Krishna says, mṛtyu sarva cāhaṁ, surrender to me or die. And we're just surrendering out of fear or something like that. We're surrendering because that's the most intelligent thing to do. We're actually not. The fact is that we're not in control. The fact is that there's no enjoyment in this material world. And the fact is that there is full enjoyment in our natural constitutional position with Krishna. So why should we not surrender to Krishna? Why should we not surrender everything that we have to Krishna? Mind, body, and words, activities, everything to Krishna. The only thing that's holding us back is our anarthas. The only thing that's holding us back from Krishna is that we have some lingering material attachment. We have some lingering idea that we can be happy separate from Krishna. So we have to be very, very introspective, perceptive. What's holding me back from loving Krishna? That's what it means to not neglect the mind. That's what it means to control the mind. We have to take an inventory of our material desires and think, okay, I have this material desire. I understand it. So when it comes up, I can control myself. Like, for example, if you're really attached to the movies, when you walk by a movie theater, first of all, you'll be cautious not to walk by a movie theater. Second of all, if you do, if you do happen to walk by a movie theater, you're thinking, okay, I have to remember, Srila Prabhupada doesn't want me to do this, and then you remember in your mind. Yeah, that's true. The problem is not the movie theater, it's your phone. So you'll know to click the right buttons on your phone, not go to so many weird websites out there. So, patience is a virtue, determination is a virtue, and keeping the goal in mind and not being deviated by so many distractions. There's so many distractions in this world. And Maya will throw things at us. It's not that the path of Krishna consciousness, as you get on it, it's just all smooth. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that it's what do you say? It's laid with thorns. It's like a razor's edge. If you're not careful, if you're not introspective, if you're not cautious with your time, with your thoughts, then there's no loss or diminution, of course, but your progress will be slowed so much. Your progress will be slowed so much. So we have to have fixed intelligence, like it's saying in this verse, by engaging in the process of hearing Krishna Katha, by purifying our consciousness, by purifying our desires, and then we'll go back home, back to Godhead. And that's awesome. So thank you very much, Hare Krishna. I'll take questions. Dravida Prabhu has something.
I'm working on the Vyasa Puja book, you know. And this was quoted, I forget by whom. This is a letter that Srila Prabhupada wrote to Bhakti Tirtha Swami when he was just initiated as Ganashyam. This is an initiation letter. And it's quite amazing because of what he says at the end. On the recommendation of Satsvarup, I am herein accepting you as my initiated disciple. Henceforth your name will be Ganashyam Das. Now you must agree to very rigidly follow the rules and regulations. That is, chanting 16 rounds of beads daily, rising early and attending Mangalarti, observing the 4 principles, attending the classes, eating only Bhagavat Prasadam, as well as working under the instruction of my representatives, such as your GBC representative and temple president. And if you follow this procedure very strictly, then your life will be glorious and you will go back to home, back to Godhead. This I can guarantee.
Jai.
Very encouraging letter.
Yeah. Deva Vrata Prabhu.
So I have a question about checking the mind with the intelligence.
Okay.
There's a pastime in the Bhagavatam, Ajamil, where he was put into a situation. He was trained very properly, actually, and he understood what was right and what was not right. And so, but he came into a situation where he saw a Sudra and a Sudrani hugging each other, and he knew it was wrong. And then he tried checking his mind with his intelligence, but he failed. Mm-hmm. So we hear this, but I just am kind of curious to hear your perspective on this particular pastime, because the thrust of your class was that you're giving the movie theater example. So, you know, one could be trained in the intelligence, but still simultaneously the intelligence can become weakened.
Yeah.
So what allows one's intelligence to actually have the strength?
Yeah. So one thing, of course, is that whole thing was arranged by Krishna to make an example. That's one thing.
Well, if that was used as an example, then it's an example of how the intelligence can be bewildered.
Right. So this is also addressed in the Bhagavad-gita. Arjuna asks Krishna, what compels people to perform actions that they know are wrong? And the answer that Krishna says is lust. So, lust is a very, very deep-rooted anartha in our heart. So yes, we may have intelligence. Yes, we may be telling ourselves, okay, this is wrong. But if we're not fully convinced, then even if we hear, that there's no pleasure in sex life, still, that doesn't mean that sex life, that your sex desire goes away. There's still lingering attachment. So even if you're telling yourself, okay, there's no pleasure in sex life, there's no pleasure in sex life, you may be saying that, but if you're not really convincing yourself, then if you're not convinced at all, then you'll fall right back into it. Because lust is very powerful. It's insatiable, practically speaking. It burns like fire and it's never satisfied. So it's just lust. It's just being overcome by lust. And sometimes, if you're not properly advanced, then the urges of the senses, they're more powerful than your intelligence. It requires a certain amount of strength, and the strength comes from the spiritual master.
Could I make one comment on that?
Yes.
Because when you described that scene, it's a very dramatic scene. And we know, of course, that eventually, after a whole lifetime of sin, he became completely covered. But he had the presence of mind to name his children, at least the last child, after names of God, Narayan, right? So, still, that wasn't saving him, when he was naming the children, but then he's still entangled with the prostitute and everything. But when that final point came, and he's threatened and he's terrified by the Yamadutas, he calls out to his son, in other words, it wasn't a pure chanting at that point, but it was pure enough to actually it was pure because it wasn't done, none of the offenses would be claimed. But the point is that by good fortune he called out the name of God, Narayan, at that critical point. Now, if he had done that when he was in the forest, that could have been a whole different ballgame, because then he wouldn't have been the example. We had another example. There's a pastime. Prabhupada's on a train. This pastime where he's traveling all over, so he's on a train and sitting there, and some prostitute comes and sits next to him, And what did Prabhupada do? He closed his eyes and he's chanting at the top of his lungs, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Opens his eyes, she's gone. I'm going to get... So we have to, at the critical moment, we have to be able to call out to Krishna, because we're weak. It's a dangerous situation,
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with my question is, in that commentary, as Dravida Prabhu just was pointed out, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains, the reason why Ajamil fell down is because he didn't take shelter of bhakti, he took shelter of gyan. So he didn't take shelter of Krishna. He was taking in shelter of his own intelligence, and through through neti and just the process of Sankhya, he was able to, okay, this is ultimately illusion, but he didn't take shelter of Krishna. Devi hi esha gunamayi mama maya durataya. The influence of Maya can have an influence on someone who's fully surrendered to Krishna. Yeah. But if someone's taking shelter of their intelligence 10%, then there's every chance to fall down.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, in relation to that pastime of Ajamil, Srila Prabhupada in his purports, he said that Ajamil just saw one Shudra and Shudrani embracing, which at that particular time, at least from the explanations, it seemed like it was a bit of a rare occurrence. It wasn't so prevalent. It wasn't so prevalent. But Srila Prabhupada says, to see such things is a common occurrence, especially in the Western countries. Even in India now, of course it's definitely getting worse, but even 10, 15, 20 years ago, you couldn't do anything like that in public. It's just like a social taboo. Police would come and say something or whatever. People wouldn't even think about it. Yeah. But it's always been like in the West, not always, of course, increasingly like that, and now it's becoming more and more and more like that. So Srila Prabhupada said that it's a common occurrence, and therefore, what are the devotees to do? And he said, just as Haridas Thakur did not become bewildered by a particular woman or prostitute, he didn't fall down into illusion, to sensuality, and also being tested by Maya herself. So Srila Prabhupada said we should take shelter of the holy names of Krishna. And he also said we could pray to Haridas Thakur, please help me. Take shelter of Haridas Thakur in his example. So yeah, that's there also. Yeah.
Dimitri.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, just want to let you know there is one question pending on the Zoom.
Okay. Let me guess.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So sometimes we might hear instructions from within the heart, from within ourselves, and sometimes they might be coming from the mind or from the Supersoul. And how can we recognize which one is which?
Well, one thing is you can. I've heard different answers, but I'll tell you both. Two that I've heard. They're kind of related. I mean, they are related, but anyway. So one thing is that you vet whatever you're hearing. You try to. You try to compare it or vet it against the instructions which are presented in Shastra, or you ask the spiritual master, and you say, "Hey, I'm feeling this inclination. I'm hearing this. Is this correct?" And then they'll tell you. Another thing I've heard is that if you have any doubts about it, then it's not the Supersoul, it's your mind. Because the business of the Supersoul is not to just give us messages necessarily. The business of the Supersoul guides us. Like for example, when we're on book distribution, and you give somebody a book, it's not that they're hearing, you have to take this book. This is going to be really good for you. They just feel compelled to take the book. Asking senior devotees, particularly the spiritual master, is this Supersoul or is this, a bona fide thing to do? And then also, do I have doubts about this? Is another way you can kind of. Hare Krishna. Vijay Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Amogha Prabhu, Dandavat Pranams. Prabhu, my question is related to the 9 stages of spiritual advancement from faith to prema. Is it that the relationship between the soul and the Supersoul changes as we make advancement? Is it that in the stage of faith, for example, the relationship is different from the relationship found in the prema stage?
Yes and no. No, in the sense that our relationship with Krishna is always there. Our relationship with Krishna is eternal. Sometimes it's manifest, sometimes it's unmanifest to the degree that we're covered by the modes of material nature. Like the Prabhupada gives the example of a father and a son. A son may become estranged from his father. He may commit, some blunder. And he may, be separated from the father. There may be some tension there or something like that. So, but, the relationship with the father is always there. It's not like the father never gives up his love for the child, no matter what kind of blunder he commits. So, similarly, our relationship with Krishna is always there. It's just a matter of remembering it and once again engaging in it. So that's my answer to that question. If maybe senior devotees have a addition to that.
Nityasiddha Krishna Prem Sadhika Munoya, as the Lord Chaitanya says, the eternal perfection of prema is there within the heart. It's not something that is artificial, has to be brought from outside. And then by the process of purification headed by hearing and chanting, eventually it becomes manifest. In other words, one awakens, that awakens and you become aware of it. So it's just a question of our own purity and our own sincerity of discovering that relationship that's already there. And at the beginning, our shraddha, and of course this is not pure shraddha, this is Prabhupada says like interest, respect, whatever gets you into the association of devotees. That's the essential first step. But then you have to practice sadhana, you have to take initiation, and anartha-nivritti is there, and eventually that relationship becomes more and more manifest, and you understand it. It's something that's been there since time immemorial, but we've forgotten it.
Is that a satisfying answer, Vijay Krishna Prabhu?
Yes, better than satisfying as usual. I have no words, Prabhu, in the best of senses. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Wow, Hare Krishna. Yeah. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Haribol.